Hi guys, I'm Jackie, and on today's episode of The Bite, what we're gonna make today is something that is really fitting for this nice cold weather that we've been having. In Florida, I'm enjoying it because I actually get to use my winter clothes that I never get to use. But I also get to make something as hearty and warm and delicious as my turkey pumpkin chili that I'm gonna show you how to make today. It's filling, it's nutritious, super easy, and it'll last you a long time in the fridge. So let's get into the ingredients. Some ground turkey breast, the magic trio, onion, celery, and carrots, important for any soup or stew. I have a can of cannellini beans and a can of red beans, both of them that I've rinsed and drained. Some tomato paste, a can of diced tomatoes and green chilies. This is a little bit on the spicy side, so if you don't want that, just do regular diced tomatoes. A can of pumpkin puree. I'll get to this in a second. A can of diced San Marzano tomatoes. I have here my spices, some turmeric, cayenne pepper, paprika, chili powder, a little bit of nutmeg, some poultry seasoning, some sage, and I have here some vegetable broth. You can totally use chicken broth or beef broth. This is just what I happen to have on hand today. So what we're gonna do is get started on the stove. I also have some olive oil, some water, salt, and pepper back there. And let's get started. So my pan is preheated. I'm just gonna add a couple tablespoons of olive oil and immediately go in with my onions. These are gonna cook down just a bit, and then I'm gonna add the carrots and celery. My onions are starting to sweat. They've cooked down just a little bit, so I'm gonna go in with the carrots and the celery. This is the perfect trio for seriously any soup or any stew. The three of these just give such a great texture and great flavor to the beginning of the soup. It's a bit sweet from the carrots. And celery just kind of has a flavor that you can't get from anything else. So these are now gonna cook down, and then we're gonna add the ground turkey. My carrots and celery and the onions have all cooked down nicely. I want to keep that little crunch in them because they are going to cook for a little bit longer in the chili. So now I'm going to add my ground turkey. And immediately you just want to start breaking this up and cook it until it's no longer pink. Okay, the meat is almost done. This is a good time to add all of your spices. So I'm going to start with a little bit of salt. Now I will say, if you end up using any spice mixtures that already come pre-mixed, sometimes they have salt in them. So if that's the case, add that first, taste it once your soup is just about ready, and then if it needs more salt, then add more salt. Otherwise, you could risk it being a little too salty, and nobody wants that. So now that the salt is in there and fully combined, I'm gonna add the pepper. And the rest of my spices. Now, like I said, I have a lot of warm spices in here, like the sage and the cinnamon and the nutmeg. Feel free to adjust these to your liking. I add turmeric to just about everything because it's a really good anti-inflammatory. So I try and incorporate it everywhere. So give that a good mix, and then we're gonna continue adding the rest of the ingredients. So the meat is pretty much done cooking. If you don't want to use turkey, you can also use ground beef or those little veggie crumbles that you can get at the stores nowadays, or just leave the meat out entirely and it'll be vegan. It'll be a totally vegan chili, especially if you use the vegetable broth instead of like a chicken broth. Totally vegan and still nice and hearty. So, quick note, I use this spoon to stir up the raw turkey. I don't want to use that anymore, so I'm going to switch to a nice clean spoon, and we can start adding the rest of our ingredients. So I'm going to add the beans. The reason I do that now is because when I'm breaking up the turkey, I don't want to break up the beans too while I'm at it. So I'm adding my cannellini and my red kidney beans, giving that a good toss. And you can see it's starting to come together nicely. Good amount of everything in there. And you can smell those spices. Once those spices hit the pan, It's like your house just fills with this warm aroma. Okay, at this point, I want to add my tomato paste. Since this is less of a liquid ingredient, we want to incorporate this, and then we can add all the liquids and the crushed tomatoes and all of that. So incorporate this as best as possible. We'll go in with our pumpkin. Now our pumpkin. I know a lot of people are going to be skeptical about this, especially if it's not fall, but you can get canned pumpkin any time of the year, and it's a really great way to get some good nutrition in. All it is really just squash. It's not just for pumpkin pies or desserts. You can use this in a savory dish like I'm doing now, and that's why I added the sage and the cinnamon, because they go really well with the pumpkin in here, but you really don't taste it much. So if you're skeptical, leave it out, but I just think it adds a nice richness to this chili. Alrighty, so that is looking good. We're gonna add the diced tomatoes and chilies and the San Marzano tomatoes. You have to get these. If you can get your hands on these at your grocery store, do it, because there is nothing like a can of San Marzano tomatoes. They're different from regular tomatoes. They have such a more bold flavor. And look at that. See, it's already starting to look like a chili. So we definitely want to add some more liquid to this. What I'm going to start off doing is taking whatever's left in my can of San Marzano tomatoes, and I want to add some water to it because I don't want any of that good flavor to go to waste. So, just stirring that up, adding the liquid in, and now I don't feel so wasteful, you know? So, we're gonna turn down the heat from medium to almost medium low. And now we can add our vegetable broth. You can make it to your liking. If you want a thicker chili, add less liquid. If you want it to be thinner, because it will thicken up a bit in the fridge if you keep it overnight, then add more water. So once it comes to the consistency that you like, which I'm ending up adding about, I'd say 3 cups of the broth. Once it gets to this point, you can let it simmer for about half an hour. I mean, everything in here is cooked really. You just want them to kind of come together and let all those flavors get involved and enveloped in one another. So I'm gonna let this sit for about half an hour on medium-low. Let it do its thing, let it get nice and bubbly, and then we'll come back and show you what it looks like. All right, so the soup is nice and bubbly. You can see that the volume of liquid has gone down just a bit, and that's exactly where we want it. You can let it simmer for a little bit more if you want, but I'm gonna just go dig in right now. I got my bowl ready, and I'm gonna ladle myself a little bit. You can totally serve this with some shredded cheese and some sour cream, or however you normally like to have a chili, but this one in particular, I like to enjoy it just like this. And don't burn yourself. Give it a minute to cool off. Or a couple seconds. It's perfect. It's so warming, and it's perfect for this cold weather that we've been having. This is something that I always like to have in the fridge, and it's awesome because you use ingredients that you probably already have in the fridge anyways. But if you don't have everything, because the list for a soup like this can get pretty extensive, use what you have on hand. If you don't have the cannellini beans or the red beans, use chickpeas, use Great Northern beans. If you don't have the meat, forget the meat. You just put mushrooms in there or something else that'll keep it nice and hearty for you, whatever you have on hand. I normally use chicken broth with this, but I didn't have it, so I use vegetable broth. Make it work for what you have in the fridge. You're saving yourself a lot of time and a lot of money that way. So thanks guys for stopping by my kitchen today. Hope you enjoy this, and please make this. If you do, let me know, shout me out on Instagram. I also have a Facebook account, and I'm gonna list all the ingredients in my blog down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.